Okay, let's start here. Let's have a scenario here. Let's say that we have a sleep lab with 4 rooms, and then you have a control room with 4 computers connected to the PSGs in the 4 rooms. All the 4 rooms equipped with an Embla S4500 PSG system and the necessary peripherals. All the 4 computers in the control room are installed with RAM Logic software. So this is an example of a sleep lab layout. With you can see that there's a control room there. There's room 1, room 2, room 3, and room 4. So does this sound familiar to you? That sleep reports reside in different PCs. Patient's appointment is normally scheduled manually or by Excel file. Patient standby list is also manually recorded. There is no centralized location for all the patient's clinical outcomes, being said that you don't have a centralized location where you can just find all your patient's reports or AHI. And in my experience, there are some sleep labs that actually records all the individual patients' clinical outcomes like AHI, total sleep time in an Excel file so that the doctor can use it for their presentations or lectures. And of course, there's a lot of times that the hospital's management will ask for a report on the sleep labs utilization. What is being done now is actually it is manually count like how many studies have you done last month or 6 months ago or for the last 5 years. So how can we improve this? So for example, like I mentioned before, the studies or the reports may reside in PC1 or PC2 or PC3 or 4, right? So how can we tackle this problem? So I would like to introduce you now the Embla Enterprise, a powerful sleep lab management software. What is Embla Enterprise? So basically it is an integrated business management solution designed to maintain and manage comprehensive patient records efficiently. On top of that, I think a lot of hospitals actually moving to paperless system now, whereby you can actually attach or scan in all your reports from the PSG into the computers. On top of that, you can actually use Enterprise to schedule your patient's appointment, and this way you can actually easily keep all your beds full, and you can churn out a standby list as well. With the Enterprise, you only need a single point of data entry. Actually, this minimizes the wrong entry of patient details. So once you have created a new referral or created a new patient in Enterprise, you do not need to create the patients again when you open the RamLogic software. With the Enterprise, you can actually also store all your patient information as well as the clinical outcomes. For marketing purposes, actually you can track and manage the referrals. That means like you would like to know how many sleep studies that a particular doctor has been referring for the past 1 year. How many studies they have referred by months. What kind of studies. So with the Enterprise, you can actually generate a report that gives you a full detail of all this information. Let's say if you have more than just one location or more than just one facilities, you have 2 different kind of facilities in 2 different locations. You can actually use Enterprise to manage these facilities. On top of that, you can use Enterprise to search for patient groups. What are patient groups? It can be like research groups like cardiology research group or a diabetic patients group. You can actually classify the patients into different groups so that when you need to search for certain information, you can just search by that group itself. You can also search for archive studies, and one of the most powerful tools in Enterprise is the ability to query. So for example, let's say if I want to search for patients which is like age 30 to 50 years old with a BMI 30 to 40, I can use the enterprise to query all this information, and then I use it for my research purposes. And of course, this will speed up the process of performing the research on own patient population. All this information are stored in the Microsoft Data Engine, or normally we will just use the Microsoft SQL Server. Enterprise, actually, we can set permissions for people who access to the database. So we can actually set permissions by groups, like for physicians, sleep techs, sleep lab manager, or visiting doctors, or secretaries, or clinic nurses. In Enterprise, we also have the internal communication, where you can actually send emails-like messages internally. So when the person logs in to Enterprise, they will receive the messages. We can also actually assign tasks and follow up for certain group of patients and tag it to the specific person that we want them to follow up, or the task for them to do. In Enterprise, we have this thing called the workflow management. That means you can track the status of the studies as they move through your sleep lab. For example, when is the date that they were referred, to the time that they were scheduled for the sleep studies, then to the time that they are the studies are scored, transcribed, and closed. Another unique thing about Enterprise is we can actually import data from all PSG systems, not only just systems from Natus. Being said that, let's say, for example, a sleep lab has 10 different kind of PSG systems. So the doctor is actually moving on to buy new systems from Natus. But at the same time, they would like to keep all the data or the reports that they have been using from the 10 systems earlier on. So what can we do is, with all the reports that has been generated from the respective systems, what we can do is we can customize an IntelliSense module for each and every one of the reports that has been generated, so that the enterprise can scan these reports and transfer all the clinical outcomes into the database. Please note that enterprise do not keep raw data. It only keeps the clinical parameters, clinical outcomes. So when, let's say for example, this customer has a system from brand X, and she wanted to keep all the clinical outcomes into the enterprise. We can do that. Let's say this PC system has 3 different kind of reports: the diagnostic, split night, and titration, for example. So we will have to customize 3 IntelliSense modules for each of the report in order for enterprise to scan and create this data into the database. With the enterprise, we can also use the questionnaire manager to create web-based questionnaires and surveys, so that when the patient comes into the sleep lab, they can actually fill in the questionnaires online, and all these results will be saved into the database and under the patient's profile. So basically, this is how the opening screen of the enterprise look like. Bear in mind that enterprise work in a view almost the same like what you are using a web browser. So you can see that actually there's a home button, okay? And if you need to refresh the data, basically you just have to press F5. On the left side here, it shows you that all the patients' details, all the patients that you have in enterprise, or I can actually click here to search by group. For example, the cardiology research group, or the diabetic research group. On the right side here, it will show me all the appointments that I have for today, or the next few appointments. And this column here will show me the task that I need to do. So if the task is overdue, it will show in red. So if I have performed the task, I can just click, and then the task will be removed. Down here is actually the internal email that I mentioned earlier on. So you can see the messages. It has some resemblance to Outlook, but with a lot lesser functionalities. It's just for communication internally. So next one, if we need to schedule a study for a patient, so here we can actually choose the study type and which facilities that we want them. Normally we will just stick to one facility, and which room that you want this patient to be assigned to. Of course, then we set the date and time for the patient. Let's say there are no beds available for your patients, and you want them, and this patient said it is an urgent case. So I can just stick here as standby, so that if let's say there's a last minute cancellation of a study, I can churn out a standby list report so that I can call the patient and ask them whether they can come in for the study tonight. So this is how the scheduler look like. So we can view by daily, we can view by weekly, and my personal favorite is where I can view it by monthly. That means I can see an overview for that month, which are the days that I already have studies on, which days that let's say maybe there's a public holiday, so the slit lab is closed, okay? And we can see the daily overview. What are the studies that we have and which room for that day itself. So these are the tasks that I mentioned earlier on. So the task can be added for a patient, study, or staff. So I can actually assign a task for a sleep tech, for example, to call the patient to come in to fit for the mask or to change the CPAP mask. So, and I can actually put in the due date for them so that I can follow up whether this task has been carried out. When you have created the patient's profile in Enterprise, all this information of this patient's information, including their demographics, when I schedule a study, this information will flow into RamLogic. So for example, I've scheduled a patient for tomorrow night. So when I come in tomorrow night, when I open the RamLogic PSG software, I do not have to key in any more information for this patient, because it will show in RamLogic that these are the two next patients. I can just select the patient and then I just start the study straight away. I'm going to demo this to you later on. So same goes with the data that has been, let's say I've collected a study, I've scored the study, and then I will publish the data into Enterprise. So this is how, what you can see here, whereby the data from PSG, like all these sleep parameters, AHI, they are transferred into Enterprise. Apart from that, let's say I have generated the reports. For example, I have certain customized report that I've done with RamLogic. So when I have saved the report in the RamLogic software, when I click Publish to Enterprise, the reports will be saved into Enterprise as well for easy viewing. Okay, and under the patient's profile, I can also attach some other information. For example, let's say this patient has undergone X-ray. I can actually attach all these files like PDF, Word, or JPEG into the patient's profile. And if you have keyed in all this information into the patient's CPAP information, this can be queried with the query tool later on. Now we have come to the Enterprise Business Reports. So basically it allows you to track your clinic statistics. You can view your referral statistics. You can view the statistics by appointment type, by staff member, daily and monthly statistics. So this is one of the examples that let's say for year 2004, I can list out all the physicians that I have in my sleep lab that has been giving us the referrals by months for the whole year. So it's an overview. I can see that, oh, this doctor has been referring how many studies for me for the year of 2004, and how many studies they have been referring in the respective months. To be more detailed, I can even show you like, okay, I have, let's say for example, for Dr. Pamela Baker, she has referred 14 studies for me in year 2004, but how many studies in months respectively? So let's say for example, in March, I can see that she has referred 4 split night. In April, there's 1 CPAP titration study, there's 1 split night study, and so forth. So it gives you a detailed view of what kind of studies and how many studies they have referred for that year. I can also generate a patient statistics report whereby it can show you a period of time, for example, from January to August. What will be the statistics of the patients that we have for the sleep lab? This is the standby list that I mentioned earlier on. So let's say I generate a report within the enterprise, and you can see here that there's this little blue colored patient's name. If let's say I call the patient and the patient said, okay, he agreed to come in for tonight's study because there's a cancellation, so he can come in for the study tonight. I can actually click on his name and it will bring me to his profile, and that will allow me to schedule the study for him tonight immediately. So it's auto linked in Enterprise. So we'll move on to the query manager. This is the tool that you use to create extensive queries on patient data stored in the Enterprise SQL database. You can search by the patient group that you have customized. You can use the query manager to analyze the study information based on your patient outcomes. You can even search for a patient based on any combination of database fields, because we are using SQL. So you can actually use the SQL commands to search or to query the kind of information that you wanted. After you have queried all this information, you can actually export these query results to Microsoft Excel. So why this is important? Because when doctors or physicians are doing research, they wanted to create bar charts or pie charts for their presentations or for their lectures. This will be a very, very helpful tool. So, and this database is automatically populated with clinical data from every study. So with the query manager, you can actually generate the epidemiological statistics on your patient population. So this is how the query manager looks like. So for example, I can use the query manager to search for patients. Let's say for example, I want to search for patients who are male patients, weight 220 to 300 pounds, or with a BMI of 30 to 40. So if I have selected these criteria and I click run, the query manager will search the whole database to give me the information that I wanted. Or to be specific, I want to see maybe just by certain patient group. Let's say only the data from inpatient. If I click on that, it will search within that group for me. Next, I can even search by the date of study. For example, I can actually determine, let's say I can just select 1st of January 2010 to 31st December 2015. So the query manager will actually search the database for the 5 years of data for me. I can even choose by study type. That means like I can choose whether I just want to view the diagnostic study, or I just want to view the split night studies, or I just want to view the MSLT studies. I can choose that. Or you can be more specific if you want. You can choose by physicians. Here, I can actually use this to search. Maybe I want to see patients with an RDI or an AHI from 30 to 50. So they will search all these patients for me within the parameters itself. or by diagnosis, by the CPAP pressures that we mentioned earlier on, or for by payers. This can be related to the insurance or the healthcare insurance in certain countries. And these are the columns for easy selection. You can select what kind of information that you wanted in your final query options. Okay, and this is the part that we can add more information if you don't see in the tabs earlier on. And then how do you want to sort the information? After we have done, we can actually export all this information into the Excel file that you can see here in this example here. Okay, now we will move on to the demonstration of the enterprise software. Okay, we will start with the enterprise software demonstration now. First, let me log into enterprise. Okay, as you can see here, every sleep technologies, secretary, physicians or sleep lab manager who wanted to access to the enterprise, they will be assigned with a username and password by the enterprise software administrator. So I will log in with my profile, which is an administrator, so that you can see the full functionalities of the enterprise. Okay, so as I have mentioned earlier on, in enterprise, you view it as if you're using a browser, a web browser. So on my left here, you can see all these patients' name, and these are the patient groups that have been customized by our lab. Okay, and then on the right side here, if there's any appointments that is scheduled for today, I'll be able to see it here, or whether I have any pending tasks. So these are the messages that is the internal email that I mentioned earlier on. So for example, I can just click on this one. Okay, so I have a request for an urgent PSG from Dr. Christina Yang. So later we will create a patient and send the patient's data to the RAM Logic software. Okay, but first, let me show you what can the enterprise do. So basically in enterprise, there is a need for a lot of customization because each sleep labs have different kind of requirements. Like for example, the type of CPAP mask, the type of CPAP machines that is available, medications, the type of access to the sleep lab. So all these can be customized for each sleep labs. So for example, if I go to tools here, this is the part whereby we will customize the group. Let's say I want to assign a new sleep tech who just joined the sleep lab. So I will assign this person to this group, and what are the things that they can access, what are things they can't. For example, that we have the administration category, we have the document management category, we have the lookup values, whether they can manage all these things, patient management, reports, and security management category. So all these things we can actually customize, and whether we grant them the permissions or not. Next up will be the CPAP types that is available in your sleep lab. So we can always add a new type of CPAP and insert it into the database. We also have, we can also change or add more information to this. For example, like the CPAP mask, the drugs, the medication. It's a long list here, or even like the user roles, These are things that we can actually change or modify to add into the database. Again, now let's try to create a patient. Okay, so we have a new patient. Okay, Mr. Johnny Walker. Okay, then next. So Enterprise will search the database and will inform you that whether this patient exists in the database or not. If no, you can say, okay, just add this new patient. Okay, we can add the address, city, country, okay, gender. Okay, you can see these options here. If this patient is part of a research group, I can actually choose one of the groups here. Okay, or perhaps this is a urgent patient, so I can put it under urgent group. Okay, please note that throughout this demo, you will see the two facilities, the Natus East and Natus West, but I already make some modifications so that you will see only Natus East as the facility. I'll click finish. Okay, so here then they will guide you to like what kind of studies that you want to do for this patient. So for example, I want to do a PSG study. Okay, a high priority. So who are the patients that this is the patient of Dr. Christina. Okay, then ordering patient, well, is her as well. Okay, date of referral day, then next. So there's no payers group. So what will be the suspected diagnosis? Usually this will be in the patient's notes. Okay, so since this is an urgent case, we'll skip for now. So this is the part that if there's any additional notes that, so maybe here we can have this is a VIP patient. Okay. Okay, so it's done. So let's schedule a study for this patient. So let's say I put him to room 1 for tonight. Okay. So here I can put the height and weight for the patient. So let's say you want to know who are the sleep technologists available for tonight's study. So I can actually select the person. So let's say I choose Adriana to be the sleep technologist tonight. And next, and then finish. Okay, so in my daily overview, I will see that this patient, this sign represent urgent patient assigned to this sleep technologist, PSG room 1. Okay, I will first now minimize my enterprise and I'll show you what happens in RAM logic. You see, the patient's data is actually flown into the RAM logic software automatically. So basically, let's say I come in to the sleep lab tonight. So I just have to select the patient. Okay, I can still add in information if I need to for this patient. Okay, then I'll go to device control and then I'll just start the recording straight away. So there's no need to add additional information or recreate the patient's profile again. Okay, let me show you now what happens when you publish the data from RAM logic into Enterprise. Okay, first I'll open a workpad that the data has been scored. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to generate a report, a customized Word report. So just give it a minute. So how does it work here is like if you have a customized Word report, or if you generated the default polysomnography report in RamLogic, if you save it under the patient's profile, it will all be published into the enterprise database altogether. So I'm going to show you how it's been done here. And what I'm going to do next is I will just put a little bit of notes in the custom Word report. I will save it here. Then I'll show you how to view it from the enterprise. Okay. So this is the generated report. Let's put a note here. Okay. So let's highlight this and save it. So I'm saving it under the patient's folder. So just save it. Okay, here it's done. Okay, if I refresh here, I can see that under documents, the report has been saved here. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I would like to publish this data, the reports plus all the clinical outcomes into Enterprise. Okay, so when you click next, what it does is RamLogic will check with Enterprise, does this patient already exist in the database? If yes, they will ask you whether would you like to overwrite the existing data. If this patient does not exist in the database, then you have the options to create a new patient. So I'll just click next here. So I would like to remind or reiterate on this again, the enterprise does not save or keep raw data. They only keep the clinical outcomes, the statistics only, and of course the reports that you publish over. So we just have to wait for it to tell us that it has been published successfully. Oh yes, it's done now. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is let's log into Enterprise and search for Mr. James. Alright, let's search for Mr. James. Okay, so this is the study that we have actually published just now. So if I double click on it, you see all the study information here. And what will be the most interesting thing is under the analysis parameters. So you see here that this will be all the information that has been published over the total sleep time, the sleep onset, the sleep parameters. You can see here this with all the sleep stages, what with the AHI for supine, non-supine, and I can choose any of these parameters here. You see it's a long list here. Okay, for example, I can just choose apnea index. So this will show me all the apnea index in the respective sleep stages. I can even choose, let's say, hypopnea index. You see, it shows you all in the respective stages. Or how about let's look at mean SpO2. All right. Or how about ODI? You see, so for physicians who actually, when they access to Enterprise, they do not have to actually just open the reports and look for this data. They can, it's very easy to view. They can just choose the parameters that they would like to see. And if let's say they would like to view the generated report in RamLogic, they can always open the documents here. You can see here. Okay, just double click on it. Voila. You see the report is all saved here. All right. Okay, so next up, I'm going to show you on the business reports that Enterprise can generate. So if I click here, you can see here that there's a lot of reports that we can generate for the sleep lab. So because this is a set of demo data that I have for my webinar, so I will generate the report from the year 2013 so that to show you that what can the enterprise do. So let's say I would like to have a report on the perform studies. I just click on it. So I can always choose the date that I wanted. So let's say January 1st, 2013 to December 31st. Okay, I just press OK. And it will show you all the perform studies that you have done. Okay, so you can see here there's a lot of page here. So I can even do the sorting by date of study. So it will show you like from January all the way, arranged all the way down to December. All right. How about waiting list? Okay. So let's say you have patients who needs an urgent study, but you do not have the space to accommodate this patient. So when there's a last minute cancellation, you can always generate this report, and you see that all their phone numbers, the physician's name, the study type, the referral dates is all here. So I can always just click on the patient's name. It will link me to the patient's profile. Then from there, I can straight away just open the scheduler and just drag and drop his name onto the scheduler and schedule a study for him. Okay, so one of the most important report that you wanted for the sleep lab is who are the referring physicians in for your sleep lab, and how many studies they be referring to you for a period of time. So I can always generate a report, for example 2013, and it will give me a list of all the doctors here, and by month how many studies they gave me for the total year in 2013. Okay, the list goes on and on. Okay, and it give me the grand total of each month. Okay, if you like to have a more specific view, I can always go to reports, referral by physician and study type. Okay, so it will break down into, like, for example, for this physician, like I would know that whether how many dancer study that she referred, how many PSG recording she referred, PSG study or split night study. Okay, so I can always view all this, and of course all this report you can actually all print it into a PDF format, or you can straight away send it to your printer so to print the report for the management. Okay, so sometimes when a sleep lab wanted to expand to a bigger sleep lab, most of the time the hospital management will ask, hey, I want to know how many studies have you done last year or for the past 2 years. So these kind of reports will come in handy for most of the sleep lab. All right. So the next thing I'm going to show you is the functionality of the query manager. So I'll just log off from the enterprise. Okay, now I'm going to log into query manager. So the password is actually the same. The login details and the password is actually the same as the login for the enterprise software. Okay, so using the query manager, so what you can actually do here is like, first let me just introduce to you, there are different kind of tabs up here. Okay, so if you choose something from each tab, it will be taken into consideration that you need these rules or this kind of selection. Okay, so for, let's say for example, if you wanted to know the study range from, let's say, January 2013 first to 2014, okay, to be exact, December. So let's say you're doing a research, okay, you need a 2 years data, okay, and then you need let's say for example, just male patient, okay, or from a specific research group here, okay. So if you're looking for a certain group of data from the CPAP settings, you can always select here, okay. Or under sleep parameters, if you like to have like the patient in with certain sleep latency or RDI, okay. Or under certain diagnosis that you have pre-selected in enterprise or by some insurance company or payers. And in the columns, this will be the part that you can create the fields that you do not see just now. For example, I would like to have a parameter on the AHI. All right, so I can always choose here from this list here. Okay, AHI for sleep only. Okay, I just ignore position and only for the first session. Okay, so I've selected here. So if let's say there are some other things that I would like it to be generated as well, I can always select here as well. Okay, so I just press OK. Okay, just give it a minute, it's building up the list. Okay, so this is the list that is generated. So what I can actually do is I can always export this whole list to the Excel file. Okay, I can just click here and copy, and then I'll just have to open Excel, paste. Okay, so from here onwards, that's where you can use it to create the pie chart or create the tables that you need for the lectures or for the presentations. Okay, so let's say this will be the, you need to add in something more. I can always click on the options and add in more parameters. Here I can always change this. Okay, but let's say this is the query that you will be using it over and over again because there's always some new data or new patients details that will be added on into the database. I can always save this query. Okay, I can always save it as like query 1. Okay, so the next time if I open the query manager, I can always search for query 1 and they will just automatically run and search for the patients that I wanted. Okay, of course you can save as many queries that you wanted to. Okay, so let me just close this. Okay, so if let's say for some of you who are well versed with SQL, so we have this advanced option where you can actually use this functionality to create more detailed search on the data that you wanted. Okay, although we have prepared some of the prefix here, okay, if you can always arrange it into any kind of arrangement that you want, and then to build the queries that you wanted. Okay, so I would now stop the session here. So I will, if there's any questions that you would like to ask, please feel free to type in the chat box. Then I will answer. If I could answer it, I'll answer it now. If I couldn't, do drop me your email address in the box. Then I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.